first storyteller for the evening. If you're ready for your first storyteller, say yeah. Yeah. Please say, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Coming to the stage right now, he is the author of Torn from the Sun, as well as Calling His Children Home, the winner of the Devins Award for Poetry. He is a professor, he is a filmmaker, and his name is Gregory Donovan. Please give it up for Gregory Donovan. A little bit louder.
Thank you, Kara, for your welcome, and thank you, Josh, for making this completely impossible. I am here because my wife betrayed me into becoming a film producer, something I never expected to have happen to me. She is the director of a film, A Late Style of Fire, which will have its world premiere at the Mill Valley Film Festival on Saturday night, and I'd like to encourage you all to come. It's a film about the poet Larry Levis. There's my wife right there. It's a film about the poet Larry Levis, who was a California poet, grew up in the Central Valley, had to decide between being a farmer and a poet, and made the disastrous decision to become a poet. And so did I. So my wife is a poet, I am a poet, we're all poets here. My first writing teacher told me that everyone is a poet until they abdicate. So have you abdicated? No. I'm going to talk a little bit about my friend and colleague, Larry Levis, who was a wonderful colleague to have and somebody I really dearly loved. And that's who the film is about. When I first met Larry Levis, Kismet, right, about meeting. The first time I met Larry Levis, I didn't actually meet Larry Levis. I became Larry Levis. And I know poets say colorful and strange things, but I'm talking about I actually became Larry Levis, and I'll explain that to you. First of all, I'll give you a little background. We were destined to meet. That's the subject of the evening, right? We were in so many of the same places that it was impossible that we wouldn't have met, except we were never in any of those places at the same time. So I went to the University of Missouri as an undergraduate, and later on, Larry taught at that school, but totally different times. My best friends in graduate school ultimately began to teach at Fresno State, Fresno, California. That's where Larry grew up, but I never ran into Larry Levis there. Ultimately, he taught graduate students at the University of Utah, and I did my graduate work. I did an MA at the University of Utah. Very awful place to be, even for just 2 years. But I survived, and so did Larry. He was there, but again, not at the same time. So eventually, I decided to rectify this whole thing, and I hired him to come to the university where I taught. And I had the very best time having him as my colleague. But the very first time I met Larry Levis, we didn't ever talk. I simply attended a reading he gave. It was one of the most stunning experiences I ever had in my life, attending a poetry reading, and I've gone to a lot of poetry readings. I love poetry readings. I am very alert during them. I don't fall asleep. Only once I did. I'm not going to tell you who. I actually deeply engage in them. So yes, in that sense, I became Larry Levis as I listened to him read the masterful poems that have ultimately made him one of the most popular poets in the United States, most especially among other poets, but in particular among young poets. And so we continue to have students who apply to the university where I taught with Larry. I teach at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And people continue to come there, young people, to study there simply because he once was there. However, this time that I heard him read, I was so stunned. I'd heard about his work, I'd read his work, but I'd never heard him read. I was so stunned that after the audience departed, I simply sat there in my chair for a while, taking it in, digesting it, and thinking about it. And as I sat there, a group of people came up to me and they said, "Thank you so very much for that wonderful reading." And Larry looked nothing like me. He was tall, he had black hair. I guess we both had beards or something. No, he had a mustache. I could not understand what had happened. And so I was immediately presented with a choice. I could either tell these people that they had totally screwed up, made asses of themselves, and thank the wrong poet, or I could just be Larry Levis. So I said, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you will buy my book. And, and ever after that, when I finally did have Larry as my colleague, I explained this story to him one time. I said, Larry, I'm a much better Larry Levis than you are. I stay around after the reading and I greet my public and I encourage them to talk to me and write to me and that kind of thing. And he agreed that was true and that I should be Larry Levis from now on. In addition, Larry, one of the things that happened to my wife is she made this film because she had a dream in which Larry Levis spoke to her and told her to make that film. And she resisted very hard. When people ask her, well, did you know Larry Levis? She never met Larry Levis. She simply heard these stories about him. One of the stories she might have heard was about the time that he was stuck up. He was the victim of a stick-up in his neighborhood, really bad neighborhood he lived in Richmond, Virginia, called Church Hill. It's where Patrick Henry gave his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. Terrible place. And the guy put a gun on him, and Larry, who was famous for writing bad checks all over town, said to the person, well, he pulled out his wallet and he showed the guy and he said, I have no money in my pocket, but I'll write you a check. The robber had no idea that the check itself wouldn't be good, But he looked at Larry for a while and stared him up and down, and then he turned and he walked away, and over his shoulder he turned back and he said, I really wasn't going to shoot you. I don't know what to make of that. In addition, another thing that happened with Larry is that he was very much beloved by his students. And one student in particular, Amy Tudor, who needed a father figure in her life, and Larry provided that for her. She was a very confused person, had come from a really badly dysfunctional family, and Larry extended this tremendous generosity to her and really helped her, not only with her writing and her intellectual life, but he also gave her the kind of support that a father would give. In fact, isn't that really what college teachers should do? I think they should. I think that's okay. And so Amy, in honor of her great love for Larry, she named her cat Larry Levis. Now, Larry enjoyed going over to Amy Tudor's house, and he would sit back in the chair, and he would say, please tell me what Larry Levis has been up to. And she would tell him, well, today he knocked over the garbage, and say, that's my boy, Larry, that's right. She said, he also seems to chase around after every female cat in the whole neighborhood. And Larry loved that story. He's like, yeah, that's me. That's my man, Larry Levis the cat. In addition, I want to also tell you a little bit about why I came to be the producer of this film, because of my love story with my wife. So I'll just tell you a quick version of it. My wife was my student at one point, years ago, and then she went away for a long time. I didn't see her for a long time. And a friend of mine said to me, when I was complaining about internet dating, which I thought was going to be the solution of my life, now that I was single, I was going to do internet dating. It was going to be wonderful. I was going to meet people I knew and everything. I didn't realize that everyone lies on internet dating, and I don't lie. So, they got what they asked for, but I never did. So I could either go have one of those really undignified dates, or I could try something else. And over the course of a number of years, I became friends with Michelle, my ultimate wife. It was an idealistic relationship, completely platonic. We never did any hanky-panky at all. But people always assumed we were. And in fact, people would say to me when they saw me out with her, they would say, is that your girlfriend? And I'd say, no. But if I ever met a girl like her, I'd marry her in a heartbeat. And so this friendship that we had carried on for a number of years. And then Michelle decided to go back to graduate school. And she came into the program where I taught by accident. She had actually gone away out of town, went to the University of New Orleans, started school there, and just 2 weeks later, Katrina hit. Now, people who were at those universities in New Orleans, they were scattered all over the country. And so programs took them in, right? And so I was both delighted and horrified that she came into my program. You know, she came back to my program. So I asked her to, she came down the hallway. I asked her to come in my office. Come here, come here, come here. Closed the door, and I said, you remember when I was talking to you earlier about maybe we might try dating? Please forget that conversation. It never happened. I'm never going to refer to it again. You won't either. You're a student now in this program, and that's it. I want you to be confident about how I deal with you completely. And so my wife, my future wife, actually learned then that I don't cheat with my students. I didn't know I was putting that foundation down, but that's what happened. Years went by. We continued to go out to concerts together. We went to dinner together. I would face a weekend and think, you know, I can have one of these horrifying internet dates, or I can have a dignified time with Michelle. And when we go see a film, we'll talk for hours afterwards about what we see and that kind of thing. And then she decided that after she got a degree there, she was going to go on to graduate study at Arizona State University. And so she went there. She was getting ready to leave town, and I told her before she left at our last dinner we had together, you know, I love you, and I hope you will always stay in touch with me. The next day she called me up and she said, we need to talk. All men know that if a woman calls you up and says, we need to talk, that is not a good thing. It's never a good thing. It's not going to be good. So I steeled myself. I knew what she was going to come over and say. I knew she was going to come over to me, and she was going to say, I love you too, but not in that way, and I want to go away, and I want to keep things clean and nice between us, so, you know, please take that into account. And so she came over. She sat down on my couch, and she said to me, I want you to explore the possibility of changing the nature of our relationship. I said, you mean you're going to give me a shot? She said, yeah. I said, we're going to go out. You want me to go out with you on a date? She said, yes, I would like to try that. I said, well, then I don't want to date you. I want to marry you. And so just a few months later, her stepfather had the opportunity to toast us at our wedding and said, a few months ago we got a very strange call from Michelle. She said, I've just been proposed to by a man who has never kissed me. And they thought I was really old-fashioned, but you know, I made a really wise choice. The only thing that happened that was a little bit strange was she made me end up becoming a producer of a film, which is having its world premiere on Saturday night at the Sequoia. And it will have another showing the next morning at the Raphael at 11 o'clock. So 8 o'clock Saturday night, 11 o'clock. If any of you come, I feel like we're all friends now. Please come up and say hello to us. We'd love to give you a hug, or you give us a hug. All right. Thank you.